So you've got the big plan and you're going to make this vision happen and you've got the big project and you're ready to go and oh my gosh, I've got this complicated group of people. I've got these board members and wait, these board members are family members. There's uncles, there's aunts, there's people that own certain parts of the land that I want to build on. Wait, what am I going to do? And so I have to figure out, well, if I'm in the driver's seat and I'm going to facilitate this project, I mean, we've got land that we need to sell. We've got things we're going to build on the land, but oh my gosh, maybe the uncles that I have or maybe the cousins, they all have different interests and it goes back generations. How do I navigate the negativity? How do I navigate these different views where different individuals have different expectations, perceptions, interpretations? These kind of situations, these puzzles, get really tricky. And it's easy to become corruptible if you're not careful by all the negativity in the room. People having their arms folded, they don't believe it can work. They say, well, you want my investment money, but what do I do? I mean, I'm extractive. I want something out of this. I don't want to contribute something to it. So if you're the one who wants to go from point A to point B, but you've got this really difficult group, how do you do it? Do you say, well, I'm going to go after them all. I'm going to get buy-in from everyone. I'm going to try to convince everyone that they have all the reasons to do it. And what you're left with is a lot of interesting variables. How much authority do you really have to give people instructions? Because most of the time when there are projects like this and there are family involved, members, they have different ownership, maybe they own some of it, but all of a sudden the CEO has decided to pull everyone in. It sounds impossible to me, right? But what we were able to do was to identify different attitudes towards the vision in the room. The first thing we did was we had the CEO set up a one-on-one meeting with everyone and to get very connected to and create an atmosphere of trust one-on-one. And what he found was in a group setting, people had their hard shell on. They wanted to make sure they projected their toughness and put their guard up because they were so afraid someone might think or insinuate that they would be taken advantage of. And so rather than get together as a group, one-on-one was actually better because we were able to break through the mask. And then asking some very particular questions. What do you want to create here? Why is this important to you? What would it look like if it were successful? So those are called success questions. They are questions of ambition, of personal interest. What's in it for you? It's an extractive set of questions that have to do with what you gain. What are your rewards if you're going to put money into the fund and then we're going to build? What they were doing was a community of homes and a community of self-sustaining development where they could summon the monies by close and near family members that had some of the land, owned some of the land, and they had to work with the legal side of all that on how to maximize the opportunity to resell the land so that everyone could be gaining as an investor. I mean, this was an incredible vision, incredible height, and one of the more difficult puzzles that I've ever been coaching someone through. And so what we realized was there was different attitudes towards the whole thing. One was there were the diehards that were really in from the beginning. They really wanted to see it work. They wanted to see the whole project come through. They wanted to resell to the outer community. They had what I call a lot more contributory energy, which is how they wanted to serve, what was needed of them. I mean, we're making land available. We're helping build a great place for people to rent and live and so forth in the urban development. And so there were those. And then there were the skeptics. I'll look at this, but I won't do anything until I see that it gets to a critical point. Once I've gotten to that point, I'll go all in. I'll divide and conquer. And then there's the teachers that say, well, it's pretty good, and I'll sell what I see to other people. I'll extend you, I'll get it across to other people. And then you start getting into the compliance. Like, I'm kind of grudging about it. I don't really want to do it, but I'll go along because someone else is going. And then you get into these non-compliance, like revolutionaries or what I call blockers. I don't want to do it. I don't think it can work. I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting back. My arms are folded. Or maybe I'm apathetic and I'm like, well, it's either or maybe I'm just really checked out and I'm the corpse. I don't care. Nothing's in it for me. I don't care. I don't want to do it. So there's a metaphor I call weeds. And if someone's a weed, we don't want to water a weed. We want to weed the garden. So we have to be careful of the poisonous, cancerous, malignant energy. Who are the poison pills of the group that can make a significant corruption on the rest of the group, like the blockers and the stories that the grudging compliance have or the non-compliance have that might bring down the others, like the diehards. Even the skeptics are very good because if they've done their homework, they're very convincing to the others to get buy-in. But what we want to do is go after the diehards, the ones that really are going to mobilize this, co-create, and then start to work with the skeptics, and then also find our teachers. The rest of them will come along, but I'm not going to work on them. I don't see the practitioner, the CEO working on them. They're going to have to come along because they see what other people are doing. And that's exactly what happened. Is as we developed more connectivity, trust, and understanding, we figured out quickly that the key ingredient to the whole thing was the social intelligence of sincere listening and understanding where other people are, what they want to do, what's important to them, and make room for differences. Once we started doing that in a one-on-one setting, people started to loosen up a little bit. They started to ungrip on some of their deeper attitudes and their resistance. And they started to listen a little bit more to, what do you guys have in mind? What's this all about? Because people don't care what you know until they know you care. And sometimes it's not about what we see. It's really about how we make people feel. And if we make them feel listened to and important, most likely they're going to be a little more flexible and receptive to what we have in mind. But no, sometimes we just go into the situation and we kind of spray on them, and then we kind of project, and then we dictate rather than invite. We treat them as if we're their parents, and we create things by force, and that doesn't work because there's no consent. But once they have a choice, and they truly do, they're invited and they can reject the opportunity, we have to take those kinds of risks because at the end of the day, it really is about choice. Accountability is not holding anything. I mean, I can hold a baby and I can hold a grocery bag, but I can't hold you accountable. Only you can choose that this is going to be your thing. You want to be involved and you would like to contribute because it's your choice. And that's true freedom. That's ownership. That's looking at the possibility of something because it matters. That's looking at the invitation to participate because you want to jump in. Not because you have to, but because you want to. And it's that kind of voluntary energy that actually overcame the obstacles in the rest of the group. Now conversations collectively could start to brew, and they started to bring a few groups together, 3, 4, and then 3, 4, and then the whole group. I think it was around 12 members. And they formed a board of directors, and they started to really form a company. And company means kompan, which means to break bread together. They began to see differences in each other and illuminate them. They started to feel accompanied because people were feeling more transparent and understood. It was amazing how the CEO and the interior condition of them, being very good-natured and basically good in how to serve people and how to get interested, when that emerged, the group, the whole body, the whole social body, the quality of the soil started to change. I think one of the lessons that I learned was that wants and loves are two different things. When you want something because you want it. When you love something or love someone, there's a force that's behind that, a benevolence that's behind that just wants to serve something for its own sake because we really care. And that may involve caring and making a difference and also coming from a wider peripheral sense of what is really needed. And I think a lot of great leadership emerges from there. I was very surprised about that difference between that. I think also the difference between ambition and aspiration. that aspirations are more along the lines of that deep love that you want to create and what the overall mission was for the community that people connect themselves to and want to give some energy to. Whereas the extractive people are more ambitious and saying, this is what I want. This is what I most want out of this. What's in it for me? And sometimes in a group, when you're belonging in a community where you're a citizen, where you really want to be there and contribute, sometimes the ambition energy and the want energy is actually really corrupting. Because if all it is that we want is ego-based, then we leave out the eco-based, which means house, ecosystem, the collective-based voice, which always brings forth, I think, more nobility and more heart-guided energy. And after all, I think it was really the heart-guided energy in this group that transformed its ability to become transformative. Right? So the commitment to being better is a lot different than the commitment to being better than. Being better than you is different than saying I want to be better and have excellence because I create or I want to create what I'm after and I want to see us win. And so that's one of the key ingredients to great teams is the ability to adapt and adopt by deep listening and the ability to suspend some of our judgments and release our cynicisms and be able to let go of fear, to be able to see the possibilities. And somehow this project started to catch a sort of wind in everyone, that a larger sort of story was at play. And now they've created a really neat opportunity and a process for homeowners that they've now begun to build the homes and they've begun creating the coherent community of people that are going to be nourished by local commercialization and shopping centers and great food resources and more of a sustainable development. So it's been a real interesting process over about 3 years of seeing how they cultivated that, kind of came together, nuclearized, and consolidated and found their way. And a lot of very difficult conversations took place. But what came out of it is, even though they were a family, that didn't assume that they could be better or work together. In fact, it was a lot more complex. And it was really about all the internal conversations that no one was talking about. What really hurts a group and restrains change is a lack of commitment to the truth. That the things we don't talk about, the undiscussables, the private conversations that never go public, are withheld transparencies that reduce intimacy and trust. And so the other word is respect, which is the respect of honoring that we all have different ways of looking at things and we all have different viewpoints. And if we can be a little more flexible and forgivable and actually curious about those things with a little more empathy, we might just invite each other into a place where we can be authentic. And if we can get that honest, then maybe we can blend or mesh into somewhat of a shared vision. And what I've realized is that after seeing some of these cases through and helping these people, these C-levels, work with the people and draw forth vision, none of them really ever said, I have a shared vision. But what was significant was the pursuit of a vision. And that was significant itself, that the process of dialogue and team learning and learning how to really think together and how to understand another person without agreeing with them and validate them and coming to some sort of alignment was so transformative that it enlarged people and it grew their hearts. And it wasn't that they were all in sync, it was because they were honest about the fact that they weren't. And that actually paradoxically brought them closer together because they were able to embrace the differences. And that to me was just a key factor. The other piece is just being committed to a big idea. Is the idea was larger than them themselves. They could not create this on their own. And being part of it meant the synergy of the community was really the key resource to be able to have a thinking body, to be able to have the embodied organization, which is being organized to create what they're after, such that they could most likely, have conversations that were transformative, that were real, authentic, and would lead to good outcomes. Eventually, that led to some great decisions and taking a lot of responsibility. And so we understand that it's not about putting responsibility on, it's about taking responsibility. It's about creating a space where the best in people rise to the top, right? It's about the ethos, the social soil, the quality of the soil that gives rise to the quality of the decisions and the actions and the behavior. So I hope that as I shared this case with you that you pulled some things out of it in your own world, if you're part of a family or you're part of a community, a nonprofit, a profit, where people belong and they get together. Maybe it's discussing some common resource that you're running out of, like water shortage in your city, or maybe there's a common opportunity that you have to really make a difference in an organization or group. And so how do we have conversations of ownership, invitation, possibilities? How do we handle dissent? How do we embrace criticism? How do we embrace disagreement? How do we learn to bear each other's gifts? How do we invite those gifts? How do we understand them? And I think the role of the leader is a convening function. It's to confront people's freedom and their freedom to choose. And that's where you got to put power.